Okay, I'll do the rubric first. Okay, so the rubric for this class, for the paper, you can get a preview of the rubric by going into the course project paper folder. And when you go in there, the rubrics are all located right here. Okay, so when you go in there, okay, what's a rubric? Remind me.
Guideline for how to grade something.
Yeah, it's my guideline of grading. So here it is right here. Synthesis, capstone paper, click on it, and okay. So, did the person do one of these things? Okay. If they didn't do one of these four things, paper will be returned. Usually I'll give it 5 points because they tried. And then if they don't revise and resubmit, then blah, blah, blah. This is like the other papers. Okay, this is the part that's great. It's 200 points total. You do get to revise it, but there's not a huge window for revising it, but there's around 2 weeks. You can revise it as many times as you want within the time that the assignment's available. So it's 200 points, but the first 100 points, any one of these 6 categories, if a person gets checked off needs improvement, they automatically get a 100-point deduction from their paper. Okay. The reason is because having needs improvement in any of those categories actually is a form of plagiarism. And I need to get you at least past that point to be good on this paper. I'll explain it. Okay. So needs improvement would be, all right, here's one of the qualities. Sources are properly introduced, grammatically integrated, clearly attributed. The multi-genre paper has a reflection. Okay, sources are properly introduced. Okay, so I go and I read the paper and there is no sources in it at all. Because you have to have 3 minimum. Or it's a multi-genre paper, there's no reflection. Or there could be sources in the paper throughout, no works cited attached. Or there could be a works cited attached, and there's 0 citations in the body of the paper. These are all things that I have every semester, no matter what.
So, but do the sources have to be mentioned inside the paper itself?
Yes.
Okay, so 3 sources mentioned in the paper as your
Absolutely.
or...
Yes, absolutely. Yes. Okay. Developing would be this is kind of the 2-point level. There's quotes, there's 3 sources. They're listed and they're all cited in the body of the paper. They're all direct quotes. And there's one dropped into the second paper, one dropped into the third. I mean, one dropped into the second paragraph, one dropped in the third paragraph, one dropped in the fourth paragraph. Each source is used one time, and there's only direct quotes, and there's no introduction to the sources or anything. That's like the bare minimum to not be plagiarizing.
Oh,
Does that make sense?
okay.
Yeah. So that's developing. I mean, and then these two, well, the person does the fancy stuff, like what we just saw in the Wen paper. They tell me something about the author. They build the author up. They introduce a source. They paraphrase and they're summarizing. It's all correct. I can find everything in the works cited. That's a 4-point. Doing like what I just said, except maybe there's a few errors. That's like it's a 3-point. Okay. So to do the needs improvement, a person would turn in a paper that basically just doesn't meet the basic assignment requirements. Okay. And I don't have a lot of students do that, but every semester I will have maybe across 4 classes, I'll have like maybe 4 papers, maybe 1 paper per class that will not have any sources at all. Okay. So that can't be a passing paper for this paper.
And it's 5 to 7 pages?
Yeah. But 5 to 7 pages is for a 4.0 basically, unless it's 5 to 7 pages that don't say anything.
And you said, is it 2 to 3 sources or is it 3?
3 or more. 3 or more. 3 is, you can get a 4.0 with 3 sources. It isn't the amount of sources, it's the sophistication that the sources, how they're used. Okay. So the next one, works cited or reference page is properly formatted, as are the list of sources. And here's some basic things. Now I'm going to tell you that I do have colleagues that if the sources are not alphabetized, that is a 0 on the paper. Because I know it's hard to understand because if you're just learning this, but if sources aren't alphabetized, that is such the most basic thing that must be done that it's just kind of like screaming out error, 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 like that. So I'm not going to give these, I'm not going to give a,
So does that you're talking about the last names?
yes, last names first, and those need to be, or the title.
And I should have asked for the project or for the presentation, when there are multiple authors, like, is it which author's name do we use for the alphabetical order? The one I did it, I went by who they listed first.
You have to do it that way.
Okay.
Remember we talked about
I didn't think, I mean, I was like, I couldn't,
last time I mentioned that when there's more than one author, they negotiate for who gets to go first, because that's the person that did the most work.
okay.
That's a lead author.
And the book that I'm thinking of specifically, it's strange because it was edited by these two people. Then there was another person who did an introduction to the book, and then there are multiple authors.
That's normal.
So it's, I did the thing that I hope I did that at all and all that correctly.
That's the normal way for things to get written. You try to get somebody famous to do the introduction.
They did.
Yes, that's always how it
They
is.
were all famous.
I've done a couple of those. I've been the editor for a couple of those edited collections, so you try to get somebody famous to do the introduction and wrap it all up.
Should I have mentioned the person who did the introduction? It wasn't on the cover of the book, but it said, but he did the introduction at the bottom. It didn't say it's by so and so, and then.
No, you don't have to put that in your citation. No.
Well, yeah, okay.
Unless you were quoting from the introduction, then that would be your site. Okay. All right. So let's see. So a person, I mean, I was just looking today, I was grading late annotated bibs in the other class, but it's an annotated bib. I'm not grading it as hard as this one. The sources weren't alphabetized. I didn't fail it or anything, but I did take points off. So, but you can revise it for a higher grade. If I'm getting something at this stage of the semester, the capstone paper, there's no hanging indent and it's not alphabetized and so on. Depending if a few sources are not alphabetized, it could be proficient. If the whole thing is not alphabetized, but everything else is like amazing, it could still be proficient. So if there's no hanging indent and italics aren't used and it's not alphabetized, maybe it would be developing. If everything's absolutely perfect, it's exemplary. If I get a list of URLs, only URLs, no information, needs improvement, right? I'm not going to say needs improvement just because it's not in alphabetical order. If everything else is amazing, that's going to take points off, but it's not going to flunk the whole thing. Okay, but the works cited in the reference page and this thing too, all right?
What if there's no author's name, but like it's like a hospital or a restaurant, like that's the source?
Then you have to cite that source and it doesn't have an author. You cite it as if it doesn't have an author.
So you can't put, but you can use it.
Yes. Yeah.
But there's like a team or like.
Yeah, well, if it's a team, you got to cite the team. You can make up a name for it. Yeah, this one doesn't give you the no author. Well, here's one.
So would you list it as an organization or corporation or company name?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Because for like paper number 3, I was looking at those and I was like, typically they don't have someone's name, but there's like a restaurant's name or whatever. And so I was trying to see about that.
Is the restaurant the author?
It's like a college, like hospitality management under the college, or like fancy school or official school of hospitality is.
Maybe the school is the author. I don't know.
It's like two of the same paper that I'm using for that.
Okay. All right.
La Roche is like the school.
Yeah.
La Roche school.
Maybe that's the author. Maybe the school's the author. Okay, so you've got this. I need 3 sources. All right, this is what I want to say. This stuff is not how smart you are in any way. This stuff is not reflecting how smart you are. This is just time. This takes time to do this correctly. That's all. It just takes more time. You have to be meticulous. You have to take the time to look at the rules and imitate. It's not like you're the most brilliant person in the world, so that's why you got a 4 point. That's not why people get a 4 point in these categories. It's because they took the time to look at the rule, go in there, fuss around with it, spend a whole bunch of time moving their periods around and their commas. It's time on task. It's completely time on task. And time on task is definitely the difference between a 3.5 and a 4 point. Absolutely. Yeah. Time on task. That's what documentation is, really. Okay. So this one is super important. Is the first word of each citation in the works cited within the text. If something else is going on, then you're in one of these other areas other than 4.0. So when I get a paper, I will get a paper every semester where there's all these sources used in the body of the paper, and then there's no works cited. That's developing, or that's not yet. That's my not yet category. Or I get a paper where there's a works cited and there's 0 citations in the body of the paper. 0. So that's very concerning because the sources probably were used, but they weren't cited. So that's where you get this situation. If any of you at least try to get the citations correct, it's unlikely that you're going to get a check in that last column. But even if you did, so what? So you didn't, hit a home run on your first try. I'm not judging you as a human. Just do the revision, turn it in, and these kind of revisions don't take that long, and you can raise your grade significantly. Okay, so this one is kind of what Joshua was just asking about. For paper 3, I need at least some sources to have authors. So I'm asking for 3 sources. I need at least one of the sources to have authors. I don't want to see all sources coming from Wikipedia. I don't want all .com sources necessarily. I don't want just random web pages where it looks like it's not even relevant, but the source was just grabbed in order to meet the 3 sources required.
So you have to have one that has a person, like a person's name.
Doesn't have to be a human author. Doesn't have to be a human author.
Okay.
Okay.
Is it already they all come from books?
Yes.
Where do we? I'm trying to figure out where we find this rubric.
Okay, let's go. Okay, the rubric will come available once the assignment comes available, but it's also in here. You need to see this rubric. It's very important. It's go into content, scroll down, okay, and go to this folder, course project paper instructions. It's in there. Okay?
Oh, okay.
It's basically the answers. I'm giving you the answers so that you can get an A. I mean, we don't do A, so you can get a 4 point. All right, where am I? Okay, yeah, all right. So give me some array. Don't give me a bunch of URLs. Don't give me all Wikipedia, etc. Writer was able to strategically summarize, paraphrase, and direct quote. Multi-genre paper has reflections citing each source and has a quote, summary, and paraphrase. Okay. Get the paper. It's 5 to 7 pages. There's exactly 3 direct quotes in the entire paper. Each one direct quote from each source. No signaling in, just quote with the author's name. It matches up to the work cited. 2 point. Okay. Summarize, paraphrase. I see summarization. I see 2 quotes and 1 paraphrase. Met that in 1 summary. Okay, met the basic requirements, no signaling in or just a tiny bit.
I think people are trying to message you on chat.
Wait, yeah. Okay, wait, I'm looking at the chat. What is a reflection sighting? What is a reflection sighting? What does that mean? What do you mean, what is a reflection sighting? Wait. Okay. So, okay, I got it. Yeah, I'll show you. Remind me to show you in a minute. I have samples in there. Okay, it's going to cite your source. I'll show you in a second. Um, okay. So anyway, over here we go. I get a paper. Every source is paraphrased multiple times, quoted multiple times, or maybe just quoted a couple times, paraphrased, summarized. The sources are talking to each other. The author is giving their opinion, blended in with the sources. That's synthesis. That's what we were just looking at with that when paper. 4.0. I get a paper and there's no quotes in it. There's no paraphrases. There's no reflection, this kind of thing. Maybe there's one quote. Okay, all direct, exactly 3 quotes from exactly 3 sources. No introduction to the things, 2 point. You see what I'm saying? So, okay, so, oh, I'm sorry. And then this is the final one. I occasionally will get, I mentioned this last week, I think. So you want to use the sources to help your message, not to meet the requirements of the assignment. Because, so I'll get a 5-page paper and there's all 3 sources are in paragraph 2 and there's no sources in the rest of the paper. Okay, that doesn't work. It does not work. Yes, you use 3 sources, but it's like the paper is really hard to read because you've got sources in one area, not in the other. So when you're using sources and working with them, normally they're going to be balanced and blended throughout the entire paper, not just kind of dumped in one paragraph. So we want to be sure that our paper throughout, or our piece of writing, whatever we're doing, that it's all blended together and that it presents a whole, however it is, even with the multi-genre project. Okay, so with the multi-genre project, and then this, okay, wait, I'll show you the example. So here are these other things, which are the things that you've always been graded on for all the papers, so it's no big on that. All right, now I want to show you